So good afternoon, all of you, and welcome back to Excelsior Academy. Today we are going to do SGS page, that is sodium dodecyl sulfate polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. Now this is very important. This is very important because whenever you deal with your protein research, this SGS page you need to do at each and every step. So you can see, or maybe you must have seen in your seniors cases also, these kinds of gels are also there, like 12% gel or 15% gel. This will tell you whether the protein in which you're interested has been purified or not, whether your proteins is pure or not, what kind of contaminants are there, what is the molecular weight of your protein. So as I mentioned before, the first characterization of protein is the getting the actual molecular weight of the protein, right? So this is also one of the technique which is used to determine the molecular weight of the protein. So let's begin this topic. So proteins can be separated and characterized by electrophoresis. So SGS page, it is a discontinuous electrophoretic system developed by Lamelli. Now Lamelli is the only SGS page we are using actually now. That is it was designed by Lamelli, and now also we are using the same. Even so many versions came, so many variations were developed, but again we are back to Lamelli only. And why, we'll see that also. Now when I say it is discontinuous electrophoretic system, what does it mean, discontinuous? It means that over here in this electrophoresis we are using two types of gel. Okay, so we are using polyacrylamide gel as the name suggests of the SGS page. Now in this also, this polyacrylamide gel 2 pH we are using, and because of which it is discontinuous. If it was continuous, then we would have said only the one type of gel is there. Okay, now whereas in this case two types are made. So this one, the top layer is called the stacking gel, and the lower one is called the resolving gel. Okay, now the percentage of the stacking gel is around 5%, and resolving is 12% or 10% or 15%. You can also have 18%. Now this percentage depends on the your protein of interest. So if you have got larger proteins, then you use less percentage. If you have smaller proteins, you use high percentage. Now whether this point is clear to you? Am I clear? Like why when there is a larger protein you use less percentage, and smaller proteins means you use high percentage? Can anyone tell me? Smaller proteins you use high percentage of gel. Then larger proteins you use less percentage of gel. So what does it mean over here? What is happening?
Because larger will elute fast, no ma'am. So it requires less gel.
No,
Whereas
no, no,
smaller,
no,
it
no.
will.
No, over here it is not like that. That is happening in the case of chromatography. So whatever answer you gave. Now in this case, what happens is, anyways, in the coming slide it is there. So I'll just explain over here also. So when we say percentage of gel, it means what? Polyacrylamide is actually your a acrylamide, right? Acrylamide, so they form a polymer. So they form this kind of crisscross they form. Now, if you have got small proteins, what will happen? They can enter here in the pore size and they can elute out fast. Now, in the case of electrophoresis, when electricity is applied, okay, what will happen? In this case, the proteins are negatively charged. So from negative to positive, your proteins are moving. So when the proteins are smaller in size and the pore size of the gel is large, what will happen? The proteins will migrate fast, correct? Now, if the protein size is large, suppose it is large, now it will take time to enter the pore size and then pores and then coming out. So what will happen? The larger proteins will come later, just opposite of chromatography technique. So what is happening? Smaller proteins will come fast and larger proteins will come later. Okay. Now, when we talk about the percentage of gel, so larger proteins means lesser percentage means what? I'm going to add less amount of acrylamide gel so that the pore size will be more such that the larger proteins can enter. Now, in case of smaller proteins, I increase the percentage of the acrylamide so that the pore size becomes reduced. And hence only smaller proteins I can study. And larger proteins will not enter the acrylamide gel and I'm not interested also. Are you getting now? If not, in the coming slide, just ask me again because over there the proper diagram is also given. Okay. So let's just continue now. So the separation of proteins based on the migration of charged proteins in the electric field, and that's why it is called electrophoresis. It is not useful for protein purification. You can just visualize the bands and understand whether your protein purification techniques were successful or not, whether your protein is pure or not. Okay, it is used as analytical method. So you can just analyze the data and not prepare your pure protein over here. Okay. Now, its advantage is that proteins can be visualized as well as separated, permitting a researcher to estimate quickly the number of different proteins in a mixture or the degree of purity. Now, if you see in the gel, if suppose this is the marker. Now, what do you mean by marker protein? Marker protein means already known proteins molecular weight is present. Okay, and I use in order to understand what will be the relative or approximate molecular weight of my protein. So suppose I have loaded my sample and I see that there are 3 bands are there. So from this, first of all, I'll understand that these 3 proteins are near to this and this, right? So from the marker, I know the molecular weight of these 3. So that will be approximate molecular weight of my protein also. Okay. Now, of these 3, I'm interested in 2 only. Since I can see that the distance between the 1, 2 and 3, that is the molecular weight of 1, 2 and 3 is so much difference is there. So what kind of technique I can use to purify my protein? I can go for gel filtration chromatography now. So now in gel filtration chromatography, how many peaks I should be able to see? Anyone? How many peaks I should be able to see in gel filtration chromatography if I run a protein mixture of these 3?
3 peaks.
Yes, so I will see 3 peaks. Okay, so like this I'll get something of this. So obviously in the gel chromatography, the smallest one, the third protein will be coming out the later and first one will come over here. Okay, so larger protein molecules will be seen on the top of the gel, and in the gel filtration chromatography it will be seen first getting eluted out. Okay, just don't get confused over here. So electrophoresis allows determination of molecular weight. So mainly we use SGS page to understand whether the protein is pure or not, and also to calculate the molecular weight. Now, electrophoresis of protein is generally carried out in gels made up of cross-linked polymer called polyacrylamide. And please be careful whenever you deal because it is cancer causing. So your acrylamide is cancer causing. Once it gets polymerized, it becomes ineffective. So while preparing your gel, you need to wear gloves. So polyacrylamide gel act as molecular sieve. As I said, so many pores will be there. So it is like cross-linked over here, and in between so many gaps are there, slowing the migration of the proteins approximately in proportion to their charge to mass ratio. So over here, we'll talk about what is the charge to mass ratio of a protein in the case of SGS. Okay. Now, migration may also be affected by the protein shape. So obviously, if it is linear, it will be slower, and if it is globular, it will be faster. Now, in electrophoresis, the force moving the macromolecule is the electric potential E. Okay. This is just a formula you need to remember in order to give your answers. But when you start doing the experiments, you just don't need all this thing. This is only for your exam point of view. The electrophoretic mobility, that is mu. Okay. The electrophoretic mobility, it is the ratio of the velocity of the particle molecule to the electric potential. So V is the velocity of the particle and E is the electric potential. It is also equal to the net charge of the molecule Z divided by the frictional coefficient. So from this we know that mobility, that is electrophoretic mobility, is equal to V by E and it is also equal to Z by F. Just remember this formula. It is just to give the answers to your questions. Now, the migration of protein in gel during electrophoresis is therefore the function of size and its shape. Now, what we do in the case of SGS page is that, as the name suggests, SGS is present. What is SGS? Sodium dodecyl sulfate. It is an anionic detergent, right? Now, what does this detergent does is, it goes and binds to the proteins in proportional to the molecular weight of the protein. That is about 1 molecule of SGS for every 2 amino acid residues. Now this is important. What you have to remember is 1 SGS molecule goes and binds to 2 amino acids, okay, of protein. So if I ask you how much SGS is required for this particular protein, so you should know all this conversion. So this also you need to remember. Remember, once I have told you each amino acid molecular weight is 110 Dalton, right? So in this way itself, so many things are there what you have to remember so that you can do all those biochemical numericals. So what you have to remember over here, once again, one SGS molecule is it goes and binds to 2 amino acid residues of a protein. Okay. Now, how it is doing? So SGS is a detergent. So we know that in the presence of the detergent, the protein will get denatured. Now, when it gets denatured, it becomes linear. Linear means it becomes open up, polypeptide chain. So the bound SGS contributes large negative charge, rendering the intrinsic charge of the protein insignificant. So what does it mean? So irrespective of the protein's positive or negative charge, the SGS gives the overall negative charge to the proteins. So now what is happening? In the electrophoresis, each protein in the gel will be separated based on the property of its mass. Okay. Why? Because the charges of all the proteins will be made negative with the help of the SGS. So what will happen now? So based on the negative charge, the proteins are not separated. So based on the molecular weight of the protein, now the proteins will be separated. So what is happening? So from negative to positive, cathode to anode, all your negative proteins are loaded over here. Now depending on the molecular weight of the protein, the smaller proteins will migrate fast and larger proteins will be migrating slower. Is this much clear to all of you? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Okay, now after electrophoresis, so till now what you have done, you have run your gel. Okay, now the electrophoresis has been done. The proteins are visualized using the dye called Kumasi blue. Now what is Kumasi blue? A blue color dye is there which is used. Okay, it is also called Kumasi brilliant blue. So it will be represented as CBB in most of the labs. Now, the property of this Kumasi blue is that it only goes and binds to the proteins and it will not bind to the gel. And that's why when you de-stain the gel, what you see is that entire gel will look transparent and only protein bands will look like this. Wherever the bands are there, wherever proteins are there, the Kumasi brilliant blue will go and bind to that. Okay, and that's how we are able to analyze the gel and our data. Thus, a researcher can monitor the progress of protein purification procedure as the number of protein bands visible on the gel decreases after each fractionation step. So what over here is happening? See, when you are doing protein purification for the first time, as I mentioned before, you get the crude extract, right? You have lysed the cell either from the animal, plant or bacteria, you get the extract. Now this extract then you subject to ammonium sulfate precipitation, right? Or pH precipitation. Then you go for dialysis. Remember the previous lectures? Then after dialysis, you load onto the column. So what we do first is that on the gel, we actually run first what we get after dialysis. Before loading on the chromatographic column, what is present on the dialysis bag, we load over here. So what will happen? If it is a crude extract, so many proteins will be present. So we'll see so many bands are there. So let us say the 10 bands are there, for example. Now you load onto the column. You are getting certain good peaks are there. Okay, so all these 4 peaks you have collected, and when you run, you get 4 peaks over here. But after visualizing all this, you understood that you're interested in this. Again, you will carry out the chromatography column and just take only that particular peak. So each step of column chromatography, you need to visualize by running SGS page whether your proteins are getting pure or not. Okay, so it's not necessary that you carry out only gel filtration. You can carry out ion exchange also, or affinity chromatography, depending on your protein type. So each step in protein purification, you need to run the SGS page. Okay, so in a day, I used to run around 10. So many fractions I used to get for my protein samples, and around 10 gel I used to run. So in one gel, you have got the 10 loading space. So 10 into 10. So in a day, I used to run 100 samples. It was like a factory work for me. Anyways. Okay. So when compared with the positions to which proteins of known molecular weight migrate in the gel, the position of your unidentified protein can give you the relative molecular weight of that unidentified protein. Okay. Now, if the protein has 2 or more different subunits, these subunits will be separated by the SGS treatment, and a separate band will appear for each. So what does it mean? So once you have purified your protein, so on gel filtration column, you are getting only 1 peak, but every time on SGS page, you are getting 2 bands. So from this, you should understand that gel filtration, 1 peak, SGS page, 2 bands. From this, you will understand that your protein is made up of 2 subunits. Okay. Now, why on SGS page it is showing 2 subunits? Because SGS is your detergent. It denatures your protein, right? So if any 2 subunits are present, so we know that subunits are associated because of the ionic interactions. Weak interactions are present. So in the presence of SGS, what will happen? These ionic interactions are broken, disturbed, and hence you see the 2 subunits. So if suppose in further question comes, like if you have got the 400 kilodalton protein, 400 kilodalton protein is there. On the gel, it shows 400 kilodalton protein, whereas in the gel, it is showing 300 and 100. So what you can conclude from this, that your protein is made up of 2 subunits, and since it is 300 and 100, it means it is heterodimer. If it was only 200 kilodalton, then on the gel you will see only single band of 200 kilodalton. Then what can you conclude? That it is made up of 2 subunits.
Homodimer.
Yes, very good. It is homodimer. Okay. So this is how you understand about proteins using column chromatography and the SGS page. Okay. Yes. Stop me in between if something is not clear. Okay. This is very important topic actually. So this is how your electrophoresis unit looks like. So you actually make a well over here using comb. So each step in SGS page I have shown with the photographs over here, so that it becomes clear to you guys. So we place cathode over here and anode is this side, so that the proteins are negatively charged because of your SGS page. So they will move towards the positive charge anode. Okay. So direction of migration is like this. So this is also called your vertical electrophoresis. And when you do for DNA, it is becoming horizontal electrophoresis. So this is how your band looks like. So if you, this is the black and white photo whenever you take in the gel documentation. Either you can do such kind of Kumasi brilliant blue, or there is another staining called silver staining. So we do silver staining if the amount of protein present in the sample is very, very less. That is around in microgram if it is present. If it is present in milligram, then Kumasi brilliant blue can easily detect. If it is present in microgram, then you have to go for silver staining. Okay. Okay. So we know that the proteins are there. They have their own positive and negative charges. And what happens? So they also have the disulfide bond. So all these need to be broken down by using BME. So already mentioned what is BME, beta mercaptoethanol, which is used to break the disulfide bonds. Okay. And SGS. So whenever you prepare your sample, you add BME into that and SGS so that the sample is broken down. So when I say sample is broken down, it means the protein is denatured and only a polypeptide chain is present now. So it is unfolded to a linear structure with negative charge proportional to the polypeptide chain length. So remember, one SGS molecule for every 2 amino acid residues. So if you have got the more or the long polypeptide chain, so more number of SGS will be attached and then it will be run. So if let us say that if these are the 3 types of protein present, see, this is first, second, and then the third. Okay. So now all these 3 samples are loaded over here, 1, 2, and 3. On migrating, this is the your molecular weight marker. So these are of the known molecular weight. Okay. These are known proteins. Now your sample you have added 1, 2, and 3. So what do you see? Already mentioned that longer polypeptide chain will be coming on the top. Okay. And here you see that the length of this and this is similar. So you see these 2 bands are going to come in the same position. So far so good? It's all clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, so proteins are separated on their polypeptide chain length by electrophoresis. So again, it's the same thing. You have got the cathode and anode, and this is the polyacrylamide gel. Can you see zigzag white meshwork is shown over here, zigzag. So this is how your cross-linking of polyacrylamide gel looks like, of which your proteins which becomes linear, only polypeptide chain is remaining. Rest all interactions, ionic or the disulfide bonds, everything has been broken down. Okay. So now what they have shown is that if it is longer polypeptide chain, it will come on the top of the gel. And if it is low molecular weight, it will come to the bottom of the polyacrylamide gel. Okay. So this is another diagram which is showing different types of proteins are passing through this porous gel, and you see bigger proteins on the top, medium on the middle, and the smaller at the bottom. Okay. Now, this is how your Kumasi Brilliant Blue gel staining looks like. So, among these is your this one. The last, what you have to remember over here is also that whenever you load your sample, either on the first well or on the last well, you add your molecular weight marker. Okay. So either on the first or on the last. So this is your molecular weight marker. So already the weight is known. So this you get from the company from which you buy the marker. So there are many companies are there like NEB, Fermentas is there, then Thermo Fisher is there. So this you must have heard also, Thermo Fisher is there. So many companies are there which actually are selling all these molecular weight markers. So whenever you buy from the company and around 2 microliter you load, they give you around 100 microliter of your sample, the molecular weight marker, of which you add 2 microliter only. So around 50 gels you can run. Okay. So they give you more, and in the company website itself or in the box, like wherever the marker is there, they will tell you which protein it is. Okay. So 14 is your lysozyme. This, so even I remember. So 14 is your lysozyme, 20 is your trypsin, 30 is carbonic anhydrase. And from here, I don't remember now, only these I remember. So 14 kilodalton means it is lysozyme, 20, 21 kilodalton trypsin, 30, 31 kilodalton, it is carbonic anhydrase. So they are of known molecular weight. Now, if you see, so the researcher has done all these experiments and have added all the proteins. Now you can see that few proteins are coming over here. So from this you can conclude that these two are having the same molecular weight, and over here also. And then you can see over here. So every time you suppose these two units are coming together, so you can say that it is made up of one protein or two subunits. Okay, two subunits. So from here we can see that it is alpha C and beta C, and maybe it can be anything. Okay, so this is the example of a best gel. It should look like this. Now sometimes when you start your doing experiments, your gel look like this. Now can you tell me what went wrong? Any idea? Anyone? Ranjan, have you tried making the SGS page? Have you seen such gels? At least for demo? Anyone? So, so here if you see in this case, see all this thing, they have taken the black and white gel and none of the lane was proper. You can see that even the marker which was added over here, only 1 and 2 and nothing got resolved beyond that. It means what? The resolving part, as I mentioned that there are two parts, right? Stacking over here and then you have got the resolving. Okay, so resolving itself was not proper. So something wrong with the pH. So with experience, you will understand what went wrong with the gel. Now, in this case also, you can see that smearing is there. Even your first and the last well is not proper. And this is like a kind of wave-like thing is coming, right? It means that your buffer in which you were running got contaminated. Buffer was contaminated. Since in your buffer glycine is present, so there is high chance that bacterial growth will come. Okay, so this and all, it's okay, no need to remember as such, but yeah, with experience you understand. Even I have run thousands of gels and I also know now like what went wrong with my gel also. So sometimes SGS was not good, sometimes tris was not good, sometimes pH was not correct. So that time you get all these kinds of worst kind of gels, and if you show this to your guide, pakka he or she is going to kick you out, because these are not at all acceptable. Now, what are the steps in the SGS page? So first one is the gel preparation, then sample, then you actually run the gel, then protein staining, and finally is the analysis. Okay. Now first one is the gel preparation. Polyacrylamide is formed by the polymerization of the monomer molecule called acrylamide. As I mentioned before, it is the acrylamide which is cross-linked by N-N-methylene bisacrylamide. So over here, you have to remember that whenever acrylamide solution is made, it is always 30%, okay, of which 29% is acrylamide and 1% is bisacrylamide. Now, this is something with practice you remember, and then it is there with you forever. So suppose this is your acrylamide. In between to cross link, you have bisacrylamide. Okay, so this is how it forms the pore-like structures. Now, free radicals are generated by ammonium persulfate and a catalyst acting as an oxygen scavenger, that is TEMED. What is TEMED? Tetra methyl ethylene diamine. Okay, it is required to start the polymerization. So what we are talking about over here, as such acrylamide and bisacrylamide cannot cross-link. In order to initiate that, we need ammonium persulfate, which gives you the radical, free radicals to start, and it is helped with it is being catalyzed by the TEMED. Okay. Now, it is prepared between two sealed glass plates of 0.75 mm or 1.5 mm. So, this is the thickness of the gel actually. So, what you are doing actually over here, so two types of glass plates will be given to you like this. Okay, one will be small and one will be the bigger one. And in between the spacer will be there, so that 0.75 mm or 1.5 mm depending on your experiment. It will be placed in between of these two glass plates like this. Okay, and from the bottom it will be sealed so that it doesn't leak out, and from the top you're going to add your gel. So when you add the gel, it is in liquid shape, and within half an hour it becomes gel. Okay. Now, so what you have to remember from this slide, that polyacrylamide is made up of acrylamide and bisacrylamide. Now, free radicals are given by ammonium persulfate, and what is the catalyst over here? It is the TEMED. What is TEMED? It is the tetraethylene methylene diamine. Okay. Okay. So now the lower gel, it is called the separating gel, or as I mentioned before, it is also called the resolving gel, is poured first and covered with few drops of water soluble alcohol. So what is happening over here? So since this is, just imagine that this is your two glass plates, and till here we have added the resolving. Okay. Now, when you make all this thing, you actually add SGS also in this. We know that whenever we deal with SGS, there is a bubble issues. So what happens, if suppose bubbles are there, then the protein separation won't take properly. So in order to remove the bubbles, we add water soluble alcohol on the top. So what will happen, all the bubbles will get disrupted. And then finally, there will be no contact with the oxygen. So what happens then? The gel polymerization rate becomes faster. So finally, this liquid of your will get converted into gel. Okay. Now, after polymerization of the separating gel, the alcohol is removed, and it is also, so this portion, the top of this over here, you actually add your alcohol. Okay, so that whatever the bubbles are made because of the SGS will be removed. Now, once the gel has been polymerized, you can remove the alcohol and then add the stacking gel. So after that, stacking gel solution is added on the top of it. Now, when you add stacking gel, like suppose this is your stacking gel, this one. So you add your comb over here, like this. So what is happening when you add comb? Once this gets polymerized, once I remove, so I can get wells like this. And onto these wells, I'll add my sample. Okay. Is it clear? Are you able to imagine? So this is the composition
Yes,
given.
ma'am.
Good. So this is the composition given, and it is universal. Okay. Even if you go to abroad or India or any lab, this is universal, and this is how it is being made all over the research labs. Okay. So just even if you remember, it's good for you, or otherwise it will be available in each lab. So what you need to remember is that acrylamide, bisacrylamide, totally it is the 30%. Then you have got the lamellar loading buffer. This is you load onto your protein sample. Then this is a running buffer in which the entire electrophoresis is being run, and then SGS percentage, ammonium and TEMED. Okay. Now, so here I have got the pictures. So you can see that there are two glass plates are there. So this is called the spacer plate, and this is called the your small glass plate. Now these are the combs. So combs, you can see depending on your sample size, either you can load more sample, or if you have got less sample but more number, so you can use these. So around 20 samples you can load here, 10 or 12 samples you can load. So depending on your protein sample number or your experiment, you can have your comb of different size. Now this is your spacer plate. What you can do is this plate will come on the top of this. So always remember this cut is there, right? This cut over here you can see. This cut I'm talking about. So this will come on the top of this. Always remember. So this always on the bottom. That is bottom is behind, and then this will come on the front, so that you can add your comb over here. Okay. Now, once the gel has been prepared, you remove the comb and you get this kind of wells over here. And to each well, you can add your sample. See, in between the spacer was added. so that you can get the thickness of the well. And as I mentioned, this cut over here, it will come on the top. Then you add the clips over here so that it doesn't leak out. So from the bottom also you seal, and on the top from the side also you seal. So all the three sides will be sealed such that when you add the liquid and it will not leak out. See, with the help of the pipette, now the liquid, the gel has been added. Can you see over here? Till here the person has added. Now once it is been added, you can see, oh, yes. So once it has been added, you can see over here. Can you make out the difference over here? The gel is there and the overlaid water, in order to understand whether the gel has been made or not. Can you make out from the figure over here? See, suppose the gel has been prepared. Okay, let us imagine that your gel has been prepared. On the top of it, now where you just want to check whether the gel has polymerized or not. So how will you check? You will just tilt your you will tilt your portion, you will tilt your plate, and you can see that if it is moving like this, it means it has not polymerized. And if it is still showing like this only, okay, then you can see that it has been polymerized. It's very simple. There's no as such big secret behind it. With your naked eye, you can see whether it is whether it has been polymerized or not. Okay. Yes. So now you can see on the top of it, that person has added the stacking gel now, and now added the comb. Correct. So comb has been placed. Now you keep this entire gel undisturbed for some time so that the combs are well placed. Now, sample preparation. So by the time your gel is getting ready, you can prepare your sample. So how you're going to prepare your sample? Sample means whatever proteins you want to check, you take that sample, add the sample buffer, and in the sample buffer you have got the SGS. You also add BME in order to break the disulfide bond, and then you heat the sample. So you are denaturing with the help of SGS, with the help of BME, and also with the high temperature. So all kinds of interaction which are present in the proteins will be denatured, and only your polypeptide chain will be left out. Okay. Now, so heating will disrupt the secondary and tertiary structures, disrupting all the hydrogen bonds and stretching the molecules. And yes, disulfide bridges are cleared by reduction, that is with the help of BME and DTT. What is DTT? Dithiotritol. Same function in order to reduce the disulfide bonds. Okay. So if not BME, you can also use DTT. Now, after cooling to room temperature, each sample is pipped into its own well. So remember, we have seen that so many wells are made, right? So depending on your experiments, 8, 10, 12, 20, many are there. So each sample, suppose I have prepared, 7 samples. So one I have to keep for my molecular weight marker. So I'll add molecular weight marker here and here and here. All my samples will be there. Okay. So always remember, molecular weight marker should be loaded onto the first or onto the last well, so that we can make the comparison properly. Now, this consists of proteins of known sizes, your molecular weight markers, and allows the estimation of the sizes of the proteins. Okay. So it will be pipped onto the first or the last pocket of the gel. Now, see, can you see over here? So you make Eppendorf's vials are there, small vials are there. You add your sample. Now this is your heating block. This is your heating block. So you keep it over there and you heat for 95 degrees Celsius for 5 minutes. And then you spin it. Now, why do you want to spin it? Because of the heat, what happens? Whatever water was present will get evaporated, and it will be present on the surface of the lid, right? So we don't want that. So everything, because each volume needs to be same. You cannot just add randomly 10 microliter in one well and 5 in another and another in 100 microliter. So every volume needs to be same. So whatever you have added, it has to be uniform. Suppose you added 20 microliter of your protein sample. 20 microliter of your protein sample and 5 microliter of your sample buffer, which is having your lamellae buffer. As I mentioned before, it will have your SDS, BME, everything will be there. So total it is becoming how much? 25 microliter. Now this 25 microliter I have kept into the Appendos and it is kept for heating. So obviously because of heating, water evaporation will be there and it will get condensed on the top of the Appendos, right? Over here. It will be present on the over here. So what I want, if you use directly, either some cases it will be having only 5 microliter of sample, in other case it will have only 10, or in other case it will have 7. So it will not give you uniform data and it will be incorrect to use such volume also. So what you're going to do, you actually spin it to 15,000 RPM and 1 minute is enough. So after that, what will happen? Or whatever water which was condensed on the top of the Appendos lid will come down, and each sample will become back to 25 microliter. Now you load this 25 microliter onto your gel. See, now once you remove the comb, it looks like this. Can you see this white thing? This is nothing but the gas bubbles are there. So once you remove the comb, so bubbles comes in that, which is okay, nothing to worry, because the moment you put into the electrophoresis buffer tank, can you see over here the tank is there. Once you put into that, these bubbles gets removed. And then finally what you have to do is, with the help of the pipette, you have to load your sample. Now, electrophoresis, this is important to understand. Okay. So we are going to run the electrophoresis now, and we use the electrophoresis buffer. The buffer is going to be your Tris HCl buffer. Now, what voltage you should use? So usually in most of the labs we use 100 volt. Okay, and it will go around half an hour to 1 hour. The time. Okay. If you want to run very fast because you don't have time, so you can also go till 200 voltage. But what the problem is that as you increase the voltage, there is increase in heat also. So sometimes if your gel is not properly polymerized, what will happen? Because of increase in the temperature, your gel will melt and entire experiment goes wasted. Okay. So make sure whenever you run your SDS page, you have enough time to run and visualize the sample. So it is always better to use it 100 voltage only. And if you're using a 200 voltage, then make sure you keep the electrophoresis unit on ice. So whatever unit you have seen till now, you have to put onto the ice then. So you have to keep on ice. So that becomes more tricky and more risky also. Okay. So the gel is going to act like a sieve. As I mentioned before, pores will be there. Small proteins will migrate easily and larger proteins will be retained and it will be moving slowly. And the time taken by the electrophoresis unit is 30 minutes to 2 hours. Okay. Now, so this all we have already mentioned. Now, one more thing what we need to add over here is that how will you understand whether the electrophoresis is being completed or not? For this, what we do is, in the sample itself, we add a bromophenol blue dye. This is also important to remember, anionic dye. Of course, anionic because all your samples are also anionic because of the SDS page, right? So everything has to be negatively charged. So anionic dye bromophenol blue has been added. So what will happen, as your bromophenol blue is very small in size. So we know that small molecule will move faster. So this has got the blue color. So when the electrophoresis unit is running, this will move in the front. And now in the unit, suppose this is your unit and bromophenol blue reaches over here. So from this you should understand that the electrophoresis has come to an end. The moment it reaches the bottom, your blue color dye reaches the bottom, you need to stop the electrophoresis unit. Okay. So that means that enough of your protein sample has been separated. So this also, as mentioned, stacking and resolving of the separating gel has got the different percentage, 4 to 6% or to 10 to 20%, and they also have different pH. So your stacking gel on which is on the top will have 6.8 pH and your resolving will have pH of 8.8. Okay, please remember this is very, very, very important. Now, so as mentioned, the buffer is tris glycine chloride buffer system. Now, what you need to understand over here is, nobody asked me why the bands are looking like this only. A very sharp band we always see, right? If we see like this or like this, it means something went wrong with the electrophoresis. But if you get such kind of band, then it has been run perfectly. No, but why every time we see only this kind of band, a very distinct cut uniform band is seen? And the reason behind this is the presence of the glycine. Now, how glycine is playing important role? So this entire slide is very important. Okay. So we know that at neutral pH, the glycine is at the Zwitter ionic form. What do you mean by Zwitter ionic form? It has got both plus and negative charge, right? Now at high pH, the glycine lose positive charge. What does it mean? It means that NH3 plus, there is a loss of H. So it becomes NH2. One second. So we know the structure over here of glycine is like this. Correct? No, like this. So this is a Zwitter ionic form at the neutral pH. Now what happens at high pH? It loses its positive charge. It means what? From here, H plus is removed and it becomes NH2. Correct? So overall charge is negative now. So it becomes anionic. Correct? Now what happens is, from your 6.8 stacking gel to 8.8 resolving gel, your glycine has to move. Now, below 6.8, neutral pH means 7, around which it is Zwitter ionic form. Below that, it is having certain positive charge. Are you able to understand? Guys, are you able to understand what I'm saying right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay?
Yes,
Okay. So let us say that glycine is present over here at 7, it is in the Zwitter ionic form. So below this neutral pH, 6.8 is there. It means what? It is slightly positive. Correct? It is slightly positive. Whereas at 8.8 pH, it is negative. Now, in the electrophoresis, it is moving from negative to positive. But already your glycine over here at 6.8 is slightly positive. So positive will not move towards positive, but it is under the electric field. So the movement of glycine in the stacking is going to be slow. Agree? The movement of glycine is going to be very slow in the stacking gel. But as I mentioned, it is tris glycine chloride buffer system. So it has got chloride also. And we know that chloride is negatively charged. So chloride is negatively charged, so it will move towards the positive in the cathode anode system, right? So what is happening now is that in your stacking, chloride is moving in the front, in between your protein is there and behind your glycine is there. Okay, so this is how it is present in the stacking. So it moves very slowly. Now, once it reaches the resolving, so there is a border, correct? 6.8 gel, and here this side it is having the 8.8. Now what will happen? Once it reaches the border, the glycine is going to become negatively charged. It becomes highly negative. So what will happen? Glycine will migrate faster and will come in the front. Okay. So this movement of glycine from back of the protein to the front of the protein makes your protein stack instead of scattered. So this movement of glycine from low pH to high pH makes your protein stack instead of scattered. And this is the reason why all your protein comes in distinct bands like this in the gel. Is it clear? Is it clear? Anyone?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is very important, okay, because in most of the interviews we ask this question only. why do we use different pH in the SGS. Okay. So whatever I have explained now, it's written over here in the same. So now, can you see over here? It's very light actually. You can see bands are there, the wells are there. Okay, and you cannot add by looking at in the different directions. You have to look into very straight into the gel so that you can know where the wells are there, so that you can load your sample. So this is how you load your sample, slowly, one at a time. You load your sample. Okay, it is interesting once you start doing. So finally, what you have got cathode anode and you run it. So based on your molecular weight, the proteins will migrate. Now at the end, what you have to do is remove all these clamps, remove your plate very carefully because these plates are very delicate also. So they might break. So there is a technique which you will learn once you are in the lab. So remove the gel, then put into the box and then stain it with the Kumasi Brilliant Blue. So it is done in mostly we use Kumasi Brilliant Blue. If suppose you have got your protein sample very less, then we use silver staining. Okay. Now for Kumasi, we use 50% ethanol, 10% glacial acetic acid, and in that we keep it for 1 hour. After this 1 hour, that is called staining of the gel. Now de-staining, because we just want only protein to be stained and not the entire gel. So then we start doing the destaining, and for destaining we have 40% methanol, 10% glacial acetic acid. So every 15-10 minutes you can change the stain, and slowly what you see is that your entire gel becomes transparent, and wherever proteins are there, only that will look into blue bands. Okay. Finally, the analysis. So what is analysis? You record or document the gel. You can also preserve your gel. So either you can take the photograph in the mobile camera, or there is a gel doc also in which you can actually take the photographs and then take the printout also. Then you can paste into your book, or you can take it on your mobile, or you can record. So there are many methods are there. One of the method is to dry your gel. So you know that it is already made up of gel, polyacrylamide gel, correct? In that, if you dry it, that is if you remove the entire water, as it is, it gets shrink and it will be placed. Because sometimes what happens is that there are many researchers, many scientists who will not believe that you have done this and it came out perfectly well, because you know that nowadays many people are very good with photoshops. So suppose you are not getting a protein, but it is the deadline that you need to show the data. So there are many students who does this kind of thing. So in such cases, the scientist will ask you to bring the original gel itself. So every time you cannot keep the gel in the staining buffer or in the de-staining buffer, right? With the passage of time, the gel will lose its integrity and it gets broken down. So what you can do is you can preserve it. So how you have your leaves and flowers, you dry and frame it, right? In the same way, you can also dry the gel. Now, how do you do this thing is, so you take the cellophane film is taken. So 2 glass plate will be taken over here. So 2 glass plate will be taken, very thick will be there, okay? And on one side you keep your gel, on the top of it you keep the cellophane film you will keep, and again on the top of it keep the another plate. Okay, then press it very hard and just clamp it, and with passage of time what will happen, entire water will be removed, that is the gel gets dehydrated, but your gel will shrink and each band will be looking distinct over there. So initially if you see the image, it's like this. Okay, now once it gets dry, it becomes small, but it looks as it is like that only. And you can also add glycerol in order so that it doesn't break. It becomes very hard. It becomes like a, how do I say, without water, how the gel becomes. It's like a papad kind of thing. So it becomes very hard. So once if it is inside the cellophane film, then it is good. It has to be bubble free, everything, and there should not be any breakage. So once it is inside the cellophane film, then it is perfect. Okay, it's just like how you preserve your botanical gardens leaves and flowers are there, right? In the same way, you actually can preserve it. Now applications, yes, of course, to visualize a protein. separation, it is an analytical method rather than preparative. Now, what do you mean by this? Analytical method means only for the analysis. You cannot actually purify the protein using SGS because already we add 20 microliter of sample only, and hardly in that 100 to 200 microgram of proteins will be there. So you cannot do any experiments even if you are able to do the purification. Now it is also used in combination with Western blot. So if suppose your interest of protein is there and you have got the antibody specific to that protein, you can carry out the SGS page. Now it is also used for HIV test in order to evaluate proteinuria. So in this case, the HIV proteins are separated by SGS page, and we have got the Western blot having the HIV specific antibodies. So if you get the blot in this, it means the patient is having the HIV positive. Okay. Now this is the last slide, the variants. So what we have discussed is called the one-dimensional gel electrophoresis. We also have two-dimensional gel electrophoresis, in which we also use isoelectric focusing. Now isoelectric focusing means you are going to make use of PI of the proteins. What is PI of the protein? Isoelectric point, right? Where the protein where the protein becomes zwitterionic form. Remember the PI of the proteins in the last lectures we have talked about. So we can also use to study the native page. Now what is native page? SGS means you are going to use the detergents to denature the protein. Now suppose your guide is asking you don't denature the protein, now run it a native page. So everything is going to be same. Instead of SGS page, you're just not going to add it. So in each step, don't add SGS, neither in your buffer, nor in the gel, nor in the sample. Okay. So that becomes a native page. It is nothing but SGS page minus SGS. Now for separation of membrane proteins, you can use CTAB. CTAB is again the mild detergent used for the membrane protein purification. Okay. And then larger proteins also can be separated using SGDH. You can also detect the enzyme activity by zymography. So what does it mean? So you can run your native page for the enzymes. You cannot use SGS page for the enzymes because in SGS the proteins will get denatured because we add SGS, BME, and then we heat it. So what you can do is run the native page, don't heat the sample, run it, and then add the substrate. So wherever you see the color change on the bands, that means that is your protein of interest. Okay. So that's all about the SGS page. Thank you for listening. I hope this was really helpful. If any doubts are there, it's all welcome.